Welcome to Narayana IAS Academy. This is Sureka Bhaskar presenting to you the daily news analysis. For today's discussion, we've picked up a number of articles from The Hindu and the Indian Express, which are both important and relevant for the UPSC CSE examination. Let us actually run through the topics one by one. The first article has been taken from page number 10 of the Indian Express, Africa at the Center. So this particular article discusses about the growing ties between India and the continent of Africa and about the significant or how significant Africa can actually be for India in achieving its Global South agenda. Moving forward, the second article has also been taken from page number 10 of the Indian Express, taking on TB. So this particular article discusses about the key observations of the recently released TB in India report 2024 by the Union Health Ministry. So here we'll be discussing about the disease of tuberculosis and some of the global and Indian initiatives in order to handle the same. The next article, that is the third article, has been taken from page number 4 of The Hindu that actually reads, bank accounts cannot be frozen under UAPA. So this particular article will be discussing about the recent Madras High Court ruling that actually said that bank accounts cannot be frozen under the provisions of the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act without proper enquiry and satisfaction by the central government that the particular funds of this particular account has been used for banned organizations. Okay. So moving forward, the fourth article has been taken from page number 15 of the Indian Express, procurement through government e-market at over 4 lakh crore this year. So this article talks about the fact that the procurement of various goods and services through the government e-market portal has doubled to over 4 lakh crore from the past 2 lakh crore of the past fiscal year. And the final article has been taken from page number 4 of The Hindu, another senior Telangana police officer arrested in the phone tapping case. In this particular article, we'll be discussing about how ethical or unethical is this phenomenon of phone tapping is and how does it actually infringe the right to privacy of the individual as enshrined in Article 21 of the Constitution. And we will actually conclude this particular discussion by solving few prelims as well as the mains practice questions. Embark on your UPSC journey with Narayana IAS Academy. Our esteemed 5-year and 3-year integrated programs are now open for admissions in Hyderabad, Vijayawada and Nellore. Our courses include robust research and development backed initiatives such as our daily news analysis, which gives us a comprehensive view program for a broader understanding of current affairs. Our NCERT program, a foundational course that covers all NCERT syllabus, which is crucial for the UPSC preparation. And followed by this, our mentorship program for personalized guidance and regular test series for systematic learning and assessment is available for your subscription. So begin your journey to becoming a leader with Narayana IAS Academy today. The first article for the day, Africa at the Center. So this particular article discusses about the growing ties between India and the continent of Africa and also discusses about how significant can Africa be in strengthening India's achievement of its Global South strategy in the shifting global geopolitics. So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about India-Africa ties, and this is actually a significant part of international relations as well as India's Global South agenda shall be discussed here. And this entire topic is actually mapped to mains GS paper 2 bilateral, regional and global groupings and agreements involving India and or affecting India's interest. That is with respect to that of international relations for your mains examination. So moving forward, if you actually see the previous year questions, there have been questions repeatedly every year with respect to that of India's shared relations with that of its neighbors or, any other country across the globe. So here in that particular aspect, this particular topic of India-Africa relations become important for your mains examination. So moving forward, let us now understand what this particular article is talking about. Okay. So amidst the shifting global geopolitics or the dynamics, India is actually aiming to, or it has already been focusing on strengthening its ties with that of Africa, reaffirming its commitment to the Global South agenda. So moving forward, let us actually understand why is this continent of Africa important for India or how significant it is. Okay. So the first one, if you actually see the natural resources, Africa is actually abundant in natural resources, especially such as crude oil, gas, pulses, lentils, leather, gold, as well as other metals, okay, that is precious metals like diamonds, etc., which India actually lack in sufficient quantities, and hence if we actually import from them, that will actually be a sustainable economy for Africa as well and for India. Next one, if we see, is the energy security. That is, India can actually diversify. As such, it actually focuses on the Middle East countries for the imports of oil. But with the extensive resources of oil in Africa, India can diversify its oil supplies away from the Middle East by leveraging the African oil as well as the gas resources. Thereby it can actually enhance India's energy security. The next one is strategic interest. If you actually see the Horn of Africa region, it is actually extremely vital for India's trade interest, as it actually connects the Suez Canal as well as the Indian Ocean towards the west as well as the east, and it is a critical maritime trade route. Also, India has strategic interest in maintaining the stability as well as the security of this particular region and the Indian Ocean region, as all other nations look at India as a net security provider in order to ensure unhindered trade as well as naval operations. Moving forward, let us actually look at the market potential that both the countries actually share, that is the continent of Africa and India actually share, with a population of over 1 billion people and a combined GDP of around $2.5 billion. Africa actually provides a sizable market for the Indian products as well as the services. So moving forward, let us actually see the projection of soft power. Okay, so here engaging with Africa allows India in order to project as well as establish its soft power as well as cultural influences, and thereby this actually strengthens its global standing, and it also reinforces its role as a responsible stakeholder in the international community. So moving forward, let us actually see the shared history that India and Africa actually had in common. Okay, first one is ancient maritime trade routes. If we actually see, the Indian Ocean, it actually served as a vital maritime trade route that connected India as well as Africa since the ancient times. Okay, and this trade facilitated exchange of a number of items, not only the goods and services but also cultural influences, especially religions like Buddhism, etc., Hinduism, etc., and later Islam in East Africa. And also, if you see the spread of Indian diaspora, it is during the British colonial era, indentured Indian laborers, they were brought into, to work on the plantations in the African region, as well as for the construction of railways in regions of South Africa, Mauritius, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, etc. And these Indian communities, they have played a crucial role in the economic and cultural fabric of their respective African nations, and they actually served as a bridge between the two regions of India as well as in whichever region of Africa they were actually put up in. Also, if you see the anti-colonial struggle as well as the non-aligned movement, both of them actually had a coinciding path. That is, India and several African nations were a part of the non-aligned movement, and also we had leaders like Mahatma Gandhiji, Jawaharlal Nehru, as well as Nelson Mandela. These people were inspired by each other's movements in the struggle for independence and civil rights. Moving forward, now if you actually look at this particular infographic, it is very clear on the key areas of cooperation between the two regions. If you actually see here, India and Africa have a combined population of around 2.3 billion, and India, you know that we actually have a significant portion of demographic dividend. Next one, Indian diaspora in Africa, they actually consist of nearly 3 million people. The next one, there is actually ethnic, that is a strong ethnic African diaspora in India also, who descended from the Bantu people of Southeast Africa, and they actually account for almost 50,000 people. And here if you see, India-Africa bilateral trade, it is actually estimated to be around $70 billion. And if you see, for the past 15 years, there has been, the trade that has increased for almost 20 times. Moving forward, nearly 4,500 Indian soldiers are a part of the UN peacekeeping missions who are employed or deployed in Africa. And also, there is a fully formed Indian female police unit in Liberia. And moving forward, you can actually see that India offers around 900 scholarships to the African students every year. Apart from that, the Indian or the India owned or operated companies are the second largest employers in Nigeria. This is actually important. That is, this particular infographic is very, very important as it actually talks about the various areas of cooperation or ties between the two countries. Moving forward, 3% of South African population consists of the people of Indian origin, and also India is currently spending around $7.5 billion on infrastructure projects over 40 countries in this entire continent of Africa. So now let us actually discuss about the role of Africa in advancing India's Global South agenda. Okay, so here if you look at this particular infographic, we can see that the role that Africa plays is that first it actually helps to enhance the South-South cooperation. That is, majority of the countries of Africa, they are a part of the South-South cooperation, and here India views those countries as key partners in achieving its Global South agenda. Next one, this is actually happening or established through the platforms like India-Africa Forum Summit, India-Africa Development Partnership, etc. The second one is reforming global governance institutions. Okay, that is, India and the regions of Africa actually share a common interest in reforming institutions like the United Nations Security Council, that is the UNSC, the IMF, that is the International Monetary Fund, etc. And they together advocate for stronger voice for the developing countries, because these organizations, that is the international organizations, are actually inclined towards the developed nations. Okay, their thoughts and their policies are skewed towards the developed nations. So both these regions have come together in advocating a stronger voice for the developing countries. The next one, both of them actually aim at promoting sustainable development. Okay, so here if actually India collaborates with that of Africa, with various regions of Africa in renewable energy, climate change, as well as sustainable agriculture, it will eventually help in achieving the SDG, which is also one of the major targets for India in its Global South agenda. The next one, this can be done through various initiatives, and one such initiative is the International Solar Alliance. Moving forward, next is it actually helps in counter-terrorism as well as extremism. Okay, so both India as well as various regions of Africa actually share concerns over this issue of terrorism as well as extremism, and thereby cooperation in intelligence sharing, capacity building, and joint operations will actually come handy in dealing with these issues of terrorism and extremism. So moving forward, now let us actually understand what are the challenges in India-Africa relations. Okay, so these actually can be discussed under various points like competition from other global powers, the limited economic engagement that India actually has with various regions of Africa. Next one is a lack of robust infrastructure and connectivity, and finally is the security concerns. So let us actually discuss about it one by one. The first one is competition from other global powers. Okay, so here we know that China is actually a major economic and political player in Africa, as it actually invests heavily in infrastructure projects, in trade, as well as natural resource extraction. And between the year, if you see 2005 and 2018, China's foreign direct investment stock in Africa actually increased from around $491 million, surpassing $44.4 billion. Okay, so this actually surpasses, or it is way ahead of India's investment in that of Africa. The second one, if you see, limited economic engagement. So here I actually wanted to say that apart from China, there are other global powers also, like the United States, the European Union, Russia, Japan. All of them actually also share equivalent, significant interest in Africa, and this intensifies the competition for the influence over resources. The next one, if you actually see, is limited economic engagement. Okay, so despite India actually tries very hard in order to increase its trade as well as economic engagement with that of Africa, its total trade with the entire continent actually stands at only a meager 7.2% of total India's global trade. This is actually a very, very challenging or a concerning this one for India. And also you can actually see that Indian companies have invested around 45 to $54 billion as of 2021. But this is also concentrated in few of the regions only, or the countries like Mauritius, Morocco, and Egypt. So moving forward, the next one is a lack of robust infrastructure and connectivity. You know that most of the countries like the Zaire Basin, etc., because of their increasing, the challenges of temperature, the climate, weather, etc., they lack a lot of infrastructure, reliable networks, power supplies, the logistics is not proper, and all this has actually hindered the trade as well as investment flows. However, India actually tries to improve the connectivity through various other initiatives like AAGC. This is nothing but Asia-Africa Growth Corridor. And moving forward, the last point is the security concerns. We actually know that several, African regions, they actually grapple under various challenges of terrorism, piracy, civil conflicts, as well as political instability. And if we actually see, if this is Africa, towards the east, we actually have the presence of Al-Shabaab in East Africa, as well as we have Boko Haram in West Africa. These actually pose a lot of risks to the, businesses as well as the cooperation that India aspires to have with the, Eastern and West African regions. And moving ahead, after the challenges, let us actually, conclude it with a neutral stand. So this is how basically you need to write your answers in the examination. So what are the initiatives, or what are the areas where India actually has to focus in order to deal with these challenges? First one is India has to prioritize a collaborative infrastructure project. They need to bolster the trade relationship and also enhance the security cooperation with Africa, especially with respect to that of the extremism, terrorism, the maritime piracy, which are of late on the increase. And they also have to focus on the technology transfer and sustainable development, and also, the soft power, that is the people-to-people connect, actually has to be increased by leveraging the Indian diaspora, and all this can further cement the partnership, aligning the mutual interest for global influence as well as prosperity. The next article that we'll be discussing about is taking on TB. So this particular article has been taken from the Indian Express, and it actually discusses about the key highlights or the observations of the recently released India TB Report 2024 by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about what is this particular tuberculosis disease is all about, and also we'll be discussing about the observation of India TB Report 2024. And this particular topic can be mapped to general science for the prelims examination, and for the mains it can be mapped to the topic of issues relating to development and management of social sector services relating to health, education as well as human resources for your mains examination. So moving forward, if we actually look at the previous year questions, there have been repeated questions on this particular topic of health. So it is important to actually dwell on the topics of primary healthcare, secondary as well as tertiary healthcare, the maternal health, the mental health. All these are actually very important for your examination. So you can actually see question in 2018 mains examination asked on health for all concept in India, and followed by that in 2020 we actually have a question on the social development, sound and adequate healthcare policies that are needed particularly in the fields of geriatric as well as maternal healthcare, as I told you. And in 2021 there was actually a question on the life expectancy increase in the country. So moving on, if we actually see that this particular article actually deals with the recent India TB Report 2024 that has been released by the Ministry of Health as well as Family Welfare. Now, let us actually understand what are the key highlights or the observations of this particular report. So moving forward, let us understand what this report is all about. So it is an annual report that is actually prepared and published under the National TB Elimination Program, that is the NTEP, by the Central TB Division of the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. And it actually had its inception in the year 2001, and from then on it has been released, annually in order to capture the policy updates, the implementation of various programs in order to prevent as well as curb the menace of TB, and the state and district-wise performance indicators are actually provided by this particular report. So moving on, let us actually understand the observations that have been made by the report. The first one is the reporting of the cases. There has been a noted shift towards inclusivity. That is, in 2023, a significant shift in reporting of TB cases has been observed. Okay, so usually what happens, the notification regarding the number of TB cases in India is actually provided by the government. However, in the recent times, there is actually, an increased notification of cases by the private healthcare centers as well. Okay, that is, here it is noted that of the 25.5 lakh reported cases in 2023, 33% or 8.4 lakh actually originated from the private healthcare providers, which has been a substantial increase when compared to the previous year levels. That has been 1.9 lakh cases that have been reported since 2015. And this trend actually not only signifies a broader participation of the private sector in the fight against TB, but also enhances the accuracy and the completeness of the TB case detection in India in order to increase the efficacy or the efficiency in the performance of the healthcare system in India. Moving forward, the next observation is the mortality rates, which have been steady amidst the various challenges that it actually faced. So here, despite there have been numerous improvements in the case detection and the treatment, the mortality rate due to TB had actually remained stable at the rate of 3.1 to 3.2 lakhs in the year 2023. And this is actually a significant drop from the earlier noted 4.94 lakh deaths in the year 2021, and that only we know that it has actually reduced to 3.31 lakh in the year 2022. And the next observation is reducing the gap of missing cases. Earlier, there were a number of missing cases, who actually were underreported or not reported on the TB occurrence. But here, there has been a notable achievement in the year 2023 was a reduction in the missing cases of TB, with only 2.3 lakh cases that were unreported compared to the earlier 3.2 lakh cases in the previous year. And this is especially attributed through the implementation of Nikshay portal, which is nothing but a government initiative that primarily aimed at tracking TB patients comprehensively across the country. So moving forward, if we actually see the next achievement or the next observation made by the report of 2024 is that there has been achievement in treatment as well as the diagnosis of the people who are actually suffering from that of tuberculosis. So here, the report highlights significant progress towards achievement or achieving the treatment targets, with around 95% of the diagnosed patients who actually began their treatment in the year 2020. And additionally, it has also been found out that there is a significant increase in the percentage of the persons tested for drug resistance from around 25% in the year 2015 to around 58% in the year 2023. So moving forward, now it is important for us to understand what is tuberculosis, as questions can actually be, asked on this particular disease in your prelims examination. Okay. So knowing about tuberculosis, it is a bacterial infection that is actually spread primarily through tiny droplets. That is, when you inhale tiny droplets or the droplets of sputum through the coughs or the sneezes of an infected person, which is actually caused by the bacterium called as Mycobacterium tuberculosis, which belongs to the Mycobacteriaceae family. And worldwide, if you actually see, TB is the 13th leading cause of death, and it is the second leading infectious killer after COVID-19. This is very, very important. Okay. And how does the transmission of this particular disease happens is that it spreads from person to person through air. So air is actually the medium. And when people with lung TB, they actually cause or they sneeze or they spit, then what happens? They actually propel the TB germs into the air. And in humans, the TB most commonly affects the organ of lungs, and in that case, it's actually called as pulmonary tuberculosis. And in case it actually affects other organs, it's called as extrapulmonary tuberculosis. So if we actually look at this particular image, we can actually see tuberculosis. It is actually caused by bacteria Mycobacterium tuberculosis that mainly affects the lungs. In that case, it is called as pulmonary tuberculosis. And here, the transmission is actually given via sneeze, via spit, or through the cough, or that is the transmission of the droplets through air as the medium, and here we actually have the treatment that we will actually see. And here these are the common symptoms that actually occur in TB, which includes cough with sputum and even blood at times, and then you have chest pain, weaknesses, there is profuse weight loss as well as fever. And moving on, if we actually see the cure, if there is any kind of cure, or if we have to know whether TB is a treatable as well as a curable disease, yes, TB is treatable as well as a curable disease. And the vaccine, what it is actually used is that currently, there is a vaccine named as the BCG, that is the Bacilli Calmette Guerin, and this is the only licensed vaccine which is actually available for the prevention of TB. And again, the efficacy or the efficiency of this particular vaccine is actually questioned. Okay, so here it is believed that this actually works, that is, it works with higher efficiency in countries which are away from that of the equator, especially the Nordic countries like Denmark, Norway, etc. Whereas if you see the equatorial or the subtropical regions like India, Taiwan, Malawi, etc., in these regions it actually is found to not work with so much of efficiency. And also, next one, if you see what is drug-resistant TB, sometimes drug-resistant TB actually occurs when bacteria becomes resistant to the drugs which are used to treat tuberculosis. This means that the drug can no longer kill the TB bacteria. So moving forward, let us understand what are few of the global initiatives for treating tuberculosis. So looking at this particular infographic, the first one is the Global Fund. This is nothing but it is one of the largest channels for funding, for TB, that is tuberculosis control worldwide. Next one is the Stop TB Partnership. This is nothing but it is a United Nations hosted partnership with around 1,500 partner organizations that mainly focuses on TB affected communities and countries. Moving on to the next one. The next one is Global Plan to End TB 2023 to 2030. So this is nothing but it is a strategy to actually end or to evade the disease of tuberculosis by the year 2030 with a special focus on new vaccine development, and this particularly aims for a global investment of around $250 billion in order to treat 50 million people across the world. Next one is the SDG goal, that is the global initiatives must actually be targeted towards achieving the SDG goal, that is ending TB by the year 2030, is a part of one of the provisions of the Sustainable Development Goal, especially if you see SDG 3, which ensures healthy lives and promotes well-being for people of all age groups. Now moving forward, it is important to know what are the initiatives that have been taken by the Indian government in order to curb this particular disease of tuberculosis. First one is Pradhan Mantri TB Mukt Bharat Abhiyan, and this is actually under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. This is the implementing agency. Next one, if we actually look at the objectives of this particular initiative, it provides additional patient support in order to improve the treatment outcomes of TB patients. Next one, it augments the community involvement in meeting India's commitment to end TB by the year 2025. However, the world target that is under the SDG is to end TB by 2030. Next one, to leverage the corporate social responsibility activities, and it actually has two different components, that is Nikshay Mitra initiative, which is to ensure additional diagnostic, nutritional as well as vocational support to those on the TB treatment. And the second one is Nikshay Digital Portal, which is actually providing a platform for community support for the persons who are suffering with this particular disease. Moving forward, the next one is Nikshay Pokshak Yojana. This is nothing but it is a centrally sponsored scheme under the National Health Mission, where a financial assistance of rupees 500 per month is actually provided for nutritional support for each notified TB patient for a duration up to which the patient is on anti-TB treatment. Moving forward, the next initiative is National TB Elimination Program that we actually saw. It aims strategically to reduce TB burden in India by 2025, 5 years ahead of our goal of reaching the Sustainable Development Goals, that is 2030. The next one is National Strategic Plan for TB. This was launched to achieve the target of ending tuberculosis by 2025 in a mission mode, and the requirements for moving towards TB elimination in India have been arranged in 4 strategic areas, that is detect, treat, prevent, as well as build. So all these are actually important so that you can actually reproduce them in your mains answer writing. The next one is TB Hadega Desh Jeetega campaign. This is actually, it has three strong pillars which include, first one is your clinical approach, next one is your public health component, and the last one is active community participation. So this is actually the topic of TB. The next article that we will be discussing about is bank accounts cannot be frozen under UAPA, ruled the Madras High Court. So this particular article talks about the recent ruling of the Madras High Court that stated that the bank accounts cannot be frozen under the provisions of the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act unless the centre actually conducts sufficient enquiry and arrives at a subjective satisfaction that the funds from these accounts have actually been directed towards the banned organizations. So in this particular article, we will be discussing about what is UAPA and how many times it has been amended, as well as the provisions under the UAPA. And this actually is very important with respect to that of fundamental rights for your examination, and we can map this particular topic to Indian polity and governance under prelims, as well as Indian constitution, historical underpinnings, evolution, features, amendment, significant provisions, and basic structure for the mains examination. So moving forward, let us actually look at the previous year question. There has been a previous year question asked in 2017 in the prelims examination with respect to that of the relationships that fundamental rights as well as the duties actually share. So any kind of questions with respect to fundamental rights, any kind of activities that actually takes place, by the state or committed by the citizens against, which are violative of the fundamental rights, become very, very important for the examination. So moving forward, let us now understand what this particular article is talking about. So as we discussed, the Madras High Court has recently ruled that the bank accounts cannot be frozen under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, that is the UAPA Act of 1967, unless the centre actually conducts an inquiry and arrives at a subjective satisfaction that the funds in these accounts have been used or intended to be used for a banned organization. Now moving ahead, let us actually understand what are the provisions or what in itself the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act is all about. Okay, so the Act actually aims at effective prevention of unlawful activities and associations in India. An unlawful activity, according to the Act, refers to any action which is actually taken by an individual or an association that is intended to disrupt the territorial integrity as well as the tenet of sovereignty in India. Moving forward, now let us understand what are the key provisions of this particular act. Okay, so as per section 3 of the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, it empowers the central government to declare any kind of association as unlawful if it actually believes that the association involved is involved in harmful activities that threaten the sovereignty, the unity, as well as the integrity of India. And section 43D clause 5 of the Act actually leaves very little room for judicial reasoning and makes the grant of bail virtually impossible for any kind of crime or suspect which is committed under the UAPA Act. And also, it requires the court to provide an opportunity to the public prosecutor in order to oppose the bail application and not to release the accused on bail if there are reasonable grounds for believing that the accusation is prima facie true. That is, if any kind of bail is actually applied for a person who has been detained under UAPA Act, the provision actually provides the court in order to provide the public prosecutor in order to oppose such a bail application. And also, it has death penalty and life imprisonment has the highest punishments under the provisions, and also under UAPA, the investigation agency can file a charge sheet in maximum 180 days. This is very important. After the arrest, and the duration can be extended further after intimating the court. Moving forward, let us actually understand the applicability of these provisions. Under UAPA, both Indian as well as the foreign nationals can be charged, and it is also applicable to the offenders in the same manner even if the crime is actually committed outside India, that is on a foreign land. Okay, and now this particular Whereas the provisions of the Act had actually undergone an amendment twice, that is one in 2004 and another one in 2019. If you see, as per the 2004 amendments, it actually added Terrorist Act to the list of offences to ban organization for terrorist activities. And till 2004, it is important to note that unlawful activities referred to actions related to secession as well as cession of the territory. And also, according to the 2019 Amendment Act, if we see, it allows the government to label people as terrorists if they commit or participate in any kind of acts related to terrorism and plan terrorist attacks, promote terrorism on any form, or otherwise who are involved in this action of terrorism. And the Act also empowers the Director General of the NIA, that is the National Investigative Agency, to grant approval of seizure or attachment of the property of such person when the case is actually investigated by NIA. Moving forward, then the Act also empowers the officers of NIA who are of the rank of inspector or above to investigate the cases of terrorism, in addition to those conducted by the DSP or the ACP or the officers who are actually above the rank in that particular state. Now let us actually understand few data points on these UAPA cases in India. So nearly 25,000 cases, that is 25,000 people were actually arrested and they had faced trial under the UAPA Act between the years of 2016 and 2020, and only 212 of them were convicted. And also around 400 people were actually accused, who were accused under this UAPA, were acquitted by different courts, and you can see the maximum number of courts. And if you know, the maximum number of cases were actually registered in UP, which were as high as 361, followed by Jammu and Kashmir that actually had 346 and Manipur 225. And also, if we note that around 53% of the total 4,690 people who were arrested under this provision between the year 2018 and 20 were aged between 18 and 30, while 13 of them were actually below 18 and 10 were above 60 years of age. Now, moving forward, let us quickly understand what is the need for such a regulation such as UAPA for a country like India. First one, it actually helps to counter terrorism as it provides sufficient legal framework in order to investigate, in order to prevent and prosecute the individuals or any kind of associations or organizations who are involved in activities that actually threaten the national integrity, sovereignty as well as unity of India. Moving forward, it actually helps in your preventing measures, that is, they allow for proactive measures that has to be taken against the potential threats, especially with respect to that of the national integrity, deterring activities that could endanger the security of the nation. Moving forward, the legal framework, if you say, these regulations provide a legal basis in order to apprehend, to detain and prosecute the individuals or the associations who are involved in any kind of activities that threaten the country's sovereignty. Moving forward, international obligations. Regulations such as the UAPA, they actually align with the international obligations as well as the conventions that actually aim at countering terrorism, and hence it facilitates cooperation with other nations in combating transnational threats. And finally, coordination and response. That is, these kind of legal frameworks enable coordination among various law enforcement agencies both nationally as well as internationally, enhancing the government's ability to respond effectively to any kind of security threats. The next article that we'll be discussing about is procurement through government e-market at over rupees 4 lakh crore this year. So this particular article talks about the fact that the procurement of goods and services through the government e-market portal, that is the GEM portal, has actually doubled over to 4 lakh crore from the earlier 2 lakh crore in the past fiscal year. So moving ahead, here we'll be discussing about the concept of government e-market portal, as well as it forms a significant part of procurement and e-governance, and this entire topic can be mapped to GS Paper 2, Effects of Liberalization in the Economy, GS Paper 3, Important Aspects of Governance, Transparency and Accountability, specifically e-governance, and also under the topic of Economic and Social Development for the prelims examination. So moving forward, if we actually look at what this particular article is discussing about, the procurement of the goods and services, or which is called as the gross merchandise value through the government e-market portal, has actually doubled to over over rupees 4 lakh crore, which was earlier 2 lakh crore in the last fiscal year. Now let us understand what is this concept of a government e-market portal. So this government e-market portal was actually launched in the year 2016 for the purpose of online purchase of goods and services by the central ministries and various departments. And also it was majorly aimed in order to bring about transparency as well as competitiveness in the procurement activities that actually took place. Okay. So currently, if we see the government departments, ministries, the PSUs, that is the public sector units, the state governments as well as the central armed police forces, the cooperatives and civic bodies, these are all the stakeholders who are allowed to carry out transactions through this GEM portal. Also, it is the third largest of such platforms after South Korea's CONEPS as well as the GBIZ by Singapore. And also, it acts as a centralized as well as unified public procurement platform. So this is basically a public procurement platform for the government buyer organization and the suppliers of various goods and services. Moving forward, now let us actually see the contributions of the GEM portal as well as various initiatives that it has actually led to. So, the GEM portal has enrolled women entrepreneurs and various startups in order to establish their presence in the Indian marketplace as part of its initiatives in order to promote the India's aspirational program of Make in India as well as social justice also, as it actually involved or enrolled more of women entrepreneurs. Next one, there were prominent central public sector enterprises like Coal India Limited, NTPC Oil and Natural Gas Corporation Limited, then Bharat Petroleum Corporation Limited. These have all actively utilized this particular portal for their service procurement requirements. Also, if you see, GEM has actually facilitated unique service orders, okay? That actually includes hiring of chartered aircraft, then various other services like international air logistics services, then drone as a service, leasing high-value medical equipment, cybersecurity services, etc., and the hiring of AV or VR services for various events. Moving forward, if we see, they also helped in the establishment or starting of Startup Runway 2.0, where the startups get an opportunity in order to showcase their innovative products and services to the government buyers and thereby engage in public procurement, promoting Startup India mission. And also this particular, portal or an initiative of such a kind is a testimony for the proactive role that the state is actually involved in a mixed economy like India, and also it enhances the possibilities of e-governance in ensuring the ease of doing business, that is the EODB. And also it promotes the initiatives such as Make in India, Startup India, Skill India, etc. The next article that we'll be discussing about is another senior Telangana police officer has been arrested in the phone tapping case. So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about how phone tapping actually infringes on the right to privacy that is enshrined under Article 21, that is fundamental rights of the Constitution. And here we'll also discuss about various other dimensions, whether, safeguarding the national interest versus that of the privacy of a citizen, which is more important, will be discussed here. So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about fundamental right, that is Article 21 of the Constitution, right to privacy as well as national security. And these topics are actually important from GS paper 2 as well as 3 perspective, that is Indian Constitution, for the prelims examination. Moving ahead, if we actually look at the previous year question, there have been questions on, the right to privacy as well as various other fundamental rights. What is the relationship that rights as well as duties actually share with each other? So this particular topic or the news snippet becomes an important point of discussion for the examination, okay? So moving forward, let us actually understand what this article is talking about. A senior police officer has been arrested in Hyderabad in connection with that of the phone tapping case that has revealed a tangled web of surveillance, a lot of data destruction, as well as alleged political espionage. So here, let us actually understand what are the various implications of such a phone tapping. process that had actually taken place. First one actually is the concept of right to privacy. If we see, Supreme Court in the Puttaswamy judgment has actually announced that the right to privacy is a fundamental right and it is actually protected under Article 21 of the Constitution. So, this particular case highlights that there is a mandatory need in order to safeguard the particular right of privacy against any kind of unwanted intrusions, okay, by any particular agency or a person. Next one, security versus the privacy debate, okay. So, this particular scandal, it reignites the debate on prioritizing, that is, which is actually superior, whether your national security is actually superior or protection of the citizens' right to privacy under Article 21 is important. So, it actually questions the extent to which snooping powers should be exercised, and especially when such actions potentially infringe the individual freedom. So, this actually ignites this particular debate. The next one is accountability of intelligence agencies. So, this particular phone tapping incident, it highlights the urgent need for stringent regulations or stringent oversight and accountability of various intelligence agencies that are actually involved in such activities, okay. And they are also they actually undergo or they take up a lot of misuse of surveillance powers. This actually compromises not only the individual privacy but also the entire democratic ethos, okay, or the fabric of the country. Next one is about democracy and free and fair elections. So, snooping on politicians, this actually totally raises concerns about the sanctity of the process of elections that actually takes place in India. So, also this actually threatens the foundational principles of democracy. This actually suggests the misuse of power to undermine the political opposition and gain unfair advantage in order to manipulate the democratic process. So, moving forward, what are the suggestions of you of the way forward is that first one is you have to revise laws. That is, we need to clearly define the surveillance limit and oversight for these intelligence agencies so that it actually aligns with the democratic values as well as the same time focuses on securing or protecting the privacy rights, okay. So, here what happens is that where to use this data protection bill, this can actually play an effective role in doing the same. Next one is independent oversight. That is, we need to establish bodies in order to monitor, regulate, as well as investigate the intelligence activities. Thereby, at the same time, they are transparent also and they are accountable also for their misconduct. Next one is ethical training. That is, we need to provide proper training for law enforcement on legal as well as ethical standards in order to uphold the civil liberties while performing the duties. Next one is transparent surveillance actually has to be there. That is, we need to mandate transparent and judicially supervised procedures for the surveillance in order to ensure legality as well as proportionality. Next one is election protections. That is, we need to introduce regulations to prevent the surveillance misuse during the elections and ensure the fair political competition. Also, we need to bring political awareness and also, bring about a lot of tech-savvy cyber security measures. That is, implement strong cyber security in order to protect the data integrity and confidentiality in lawful surveillance operations. Let us solve few prelims as well as the mains practice question. The first question reads, which of the following statements about tuberculosis are not correct? So, tuberculosis is a viral disease that is person to person. No, it is not a viral disease. It is a non-treatable and non-curable disease. This is also wrong. So, going by both the statements, since both are wrong, the answer will be option C. Both statements 1 and 2 are wrong. So, moving forward, the second question reads, according to the Constitution of India, which of the following are fundamental for the governance of the country? Of course, it is the directive principles of state policy. So, the answer will be option C. Moving forward, the third question reads, right to privacy comes under which of the articles? So, to be precise, it's Article 21. So, here it actually falls in this bracket, that is Article 18 to 26 of the Constitution. So, since option B is correct, the answer will be option B. Moving forward, the fourth question is, which of the following statements about government e-marketplace is actually correct? So, GEM facilitates online procurement of common use goods and services required by various government departments, organizations as well as PSUs. This is correct. And GEM was launched by the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India. This is also correct. Since both the statements are correct, the answer will be option C, both 1 and 2. The fifth question reads, consider the following prominent geographical features and arrange them in the north-south direction. Mount Kilimanjaro, Victoria Falls, Okavango Delta and Table Mountain. So here this is actually arranged in the same order. So in the north-south direction it will be 1, 2, 3 and 4. So the correct answer will be option A. Now moving on to the mains practice question, it reads, discuss the strategic imperatives for India in order to deepen its engagement with that of Africa and examine how bolstering the relationship between India and Africa can serve the broader objectives of India's foreign policy. So here the approach to this particular question is divided into the introduction, body as well as conclusion. So in the introduction, we will actually briefly highlight the historical and contemporary significance of India-Africa relations with the context of India's foreign policy. And towards the body, we'll actually discuss about the strategic imperatives, that is, we will elaborate on India's need for natural resources, energy security and importance or significance of Africa for that of India. And also talking about bolstering of India-Africa relations will actually be included in the body. And towards the conclusion of the article, we will conclude on how important it is to deepen the relation with that of Africa, and this can actually reinforce India's foreign policy objectives of diversifying the alliances, upholding the principles of South-South cooperation, and also supporting a multipolar world order. With this, we've come to the conclusion of our daily news analysis discussion. For regular updates, please do like, share, and subscribe to Narayana IAS Academy YouTube channel. Thank you.